This conference will now be recorded.
We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 7:01. First item of business is roll call. Anita, we'll start with you.
Here.
Chase Gannon. Here. David here. Delbert Lowe is not here yet. Tracy Roberts.
Here.
Brad Gorsuch. Here. Josh Weiser. Here. Keith Joes. Here. Dax Kennedy. Here. Michael Wolf. Here. Russ Avey. Here. Mia Carr.
Here.
And Sharon Armstead.
Here.
Okay. Next item of business, record of proceedings for the March 27th, 2025 meeting. I did just catch one change.
Okay.
Michael's name is not listed on members present or absent.
Okay.
Pretty sure you were here for that meeting.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
So I don't know if anybody else has anything else.
Motion to accept the minutes as written with the one change.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes with the change, as written with the one change. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Minutes accepted. Before we get going, I guess I will make an announcement. If you haven't signed in, please sign in on the sheet there by the door. Thanks, Jonah. Item number 3, appoint Board of Zoning Appeals members.
Yes. Okay, so by bylaw standards, the Marion County Planning Commission serves as the Board of Zoning Appeals also. However, there's a state statute now, 12-759, and it is such board shall consist of not less than 3 nor more than 7 members. So we'll need to appoint
Members to that.
members to, yeah. Somewhere
Okay.
between 3 and 7, so.
Do we have any volunteers? What's involved? I mean, it just, the Board of Zoning Appeals, it's just when we do our zoning appeals?
Yeah, so it would just be the like special exceptions and things, variances, things like that. So this, are we gonna appoint 7 members or however many members you appoint? I would suggest an odd number.
Yeah.
Those members would be voting members on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
So I believe that the Planning Commission could still be part of that meeting, but just the designated board
People that do
members.
vote.
Yeah, correct.
That's us to appoint or the county commission?
It's just amongst this board, so,
So we just appoint on this board.
and we have 5 districts, so, I mean, I would definitely appoint one from each district, probably.
I'll volunteer for District 4.
There's one. Got Josh. I'm the at-large, so I probably self-seat myself, I suppose.
I'll volunteer.
That's 6.
5. Gorsuch, Weiser, Belton, Roberts, Mueller. Did I miss someone? Okay. And
6. Let's do one more. Put Chase on there. That way we have, I guess, yeah.
Tiebreaker.
there you go. You
That
have
way we
7.
don't, yeah. Okay, that's all you need on that.
Do you need
You need a motion
a
to,
president? How's that work?
Yeah.
So Derek would transition over to being the
Okay,
chair.
so you transition to being the chair on the Board of Zoning Appeals as well.
right.
Do you need a motion?
Make a motion to nominate those 7 members. Second.
Motion to nominate the 7 members.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to nominate those 7 members for the Board of Zoning Appeals Board. Any discussion on those motions? That motion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry, Anita. Opposed, nay.
I said aye, yes.
Yep, thank you. I've got to remember you're online. I have to be a little more patient.
Sorry.
Okay, motion carried. Moving on when you're ready.
I told him text me, it says they're having a hard time hearing it on the phone. He's calling in.
For the person online, on the phone, can you hear better now?
I can, yes.
Okay.
He said much better.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. We have,
Yeah, are you ready?
yes,
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
I'll start.
Okay.
Item number 4, case number PC-25-03, application for a conditional use permit filed by Douglas and Starla King to convert a grain bin into a living quarters to be used as a short-term rental property at 2037 Alamo, Lehigh, Kansas, located in the A agricultural district. Go for a publication date.
Publication date was April 30th, 2025. Notification letters were sent to property owners on April 28th, 2025.
Okay, with that, might have you stand or something, I guess, and just kind of give us an overview, I guess, what you want to do, and the board may have some questions for you.
Well, it's just kind of an idea that I had, crazy idea, and it seemed simple at the time, but I guess before you do something, you better ask permission, so before you build, so. It's just, I have a little old pond out by the pasture there, and there was a grain bin around, and I figured, well, I'll just make a little shelter out there, and maybe a little cabin or something, and I don't know where the idea is gonna take me, but that's a used grain bin into some type of little shelter or house or something like that, with the possibility of maybe looking in the future to maybe renting it out if the family gets tired of it, or so. I don't know, it's an idea at this point.
Sure.
We don't know if we'll all come together or not.
No, I think thanks for coming here. Anybody have any questions?
What's the diameter of it?
25 foot approximately.
And height?
Height is about, I think 16 feet, sidewalls and they're 8-foot peak.
So do you have a proposed blueprint, floor plan?
I don't really at this point,
But there would be a restroom.
yes. I would like to.
Are you gonna be tying into existing services or creating new services?
Probably creating new. There's a water line runs close there, electric line runs close there also.
So if you go to build this, obviously there are a few requirements. I think what are they, fire extinguishers, GFCI outlets, obviously you need 2 ways out, I believe, you're at the line. So,
Yeah, I think Sharon kind of went over some of that with me already.
I would assume this is pretty straightforward as a lot of these others we've done, Sharon.
It's very similar. Just let me know when you're ready for my staff report.
Why don't we go ahead and do that, and then
Do you want to do public comment first or do staff report first? How about I read my staff report? There's some other information in there as well.
yeah, I think so.
And
That's
then-
where I was leaning.
Okay,
Let's do your staff report, and then we'll do public comment.
all right, so this is the application of Douglas and Starla Kane, owners. They're requesting a conditional use permit to allow a grain bin to be converted for use as a short-term rental property. This parcel is located at 2037 Alamo near Lehigh, Kansas. It is adjacent to US Highway 56 and surrounded by agricultural tracts. The nearest residences are approximately a quarter of a mile from the tract, and the Canes own the residence to the south, and then there's another residence about a quarter of a mile to the east. The purpose of this request is to allow them to convert a grain bin, which would be a non-traditional structure, to be used as a short-term rental. The applicant plans to register the property with the registered trademark e-commerce company that serves as a platform for hosts and guests to coordinate lodging accommodations such as Airbnb or VRBO. These companies have strict requirements that the hosts and guests must agree to. The company also provides liability insurance for the host property. If at any time these guidelines are not followed, the host property will be suspended or revoked. Regardless of enrollment in an e-commerce platform or not, the property owner would also be required to follow the Marion County regulations and maintain annual registration with the county. The grain bin residence has access to well water and rural water. The owner will work with the Environmental Health Department to design wastewater system that meets county and state standards. There will be ample on-site parking available. There's also a pond on-site for recreational use by the occupants. Under the Marion County zoning regulations, a conditional use permit is required for the establishment of virtually all land uses except for agricultural and traditional single-family residential, unless such use is expressly prohibited or allowed within the regulations. The regulations currently require a CUP for non-traditional structures for the purpose of creating a residence, and also require a CUP for the establishment of a short-term rental property. So those two uses are being combined into this one request. The Marion County zoning regulations have 2 specific sections that deal with submittal requirements for a conditional use permit request. These standards for submitting a development plan are outlined in Article 12, and Article 24 outlines the factors to be considered for a conditional use permit. The Marion County Planning Commission may recommend approval of a conditional use. And the governing body may approve such conditional use using the following factors as guidelines. These factors and staff recommendations, where appropriate, are as follows.
Great. Whether approval of the conditional use would be consistent with the intent and purpose of these regulations.
The regulations address short-term rentals specifically. To the extent that the regulations address this use, staff feels this request is consistent with the spirit and intent of the Marion County zoning regulations. The regulations provide this methodology to address these types of uses individually within such zoning district. Staff believes this particular use will not be harmful to the overall use of the surrounding properties.
B, whether the location of proposed use is compatible to other land uses in the surrounding neighborhood.
Land use in the surrounding area is predominantly agricultural. Staff does not believe this land use will interfere with the other uses in the surrounding area.
C, whether the proposed use places an undue burden on the existing transportation and service facilities in the area affected, and if so, whether such additional transportation and service facilities can be provided.
The proposed use will not create an increase in service facilities. The proposed use will not generate additional traffic or road use to the extent that it would be detrimental.
D, whether the proposed use is made necessary or desirable because of changed or changing conditions in the area affected.
Staff believes there's a growing desire for short-term rentals, whether the desire to visit rural areas or the necessity due to events in the vicinity. There's a shortage of lodging in the general area.
E, the length of time the subject property has remained vacant or undeveloped as zoned, provided the use of the land for agricultural purposes shall be considered as viable use of the land and not be considered as allowing the land to be vacant or undeveloped.
Staff does not believe this to be applicable. To the extent it is, the agricultural use and the short-term rental use will coincide in the sense.
F, whether the applicant's property is suitable for the proposed use.
Staff believes the proposed use area is suitable for the short-term rental.
G, the recommendations of permanent or professional staff.
Can I just remind folks out in the audience that when someone else is speaking, to please keep your voice quiet because it's very distracting. It's hard to hear, it's hard to concentrate, so please wait till your turn to speak.
Very full.
We should have a bigger building.
Yeah, we don't need those comments. We're here on a county facility, and if you are not able to participate with the rest of us, then I can't ask you to leave, and I will ask you to leave. Thank you. Sir, you just keep pushing buttons. If you would like to participate, you're welcome to participate.
Well, we have to while.
But we have rules to follow, and if you can't follow those, you're welcome to leave. You are in my meeting, and I can very well ask you to. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm not sure. Were we on F?
F, whether the applicant's property is suitable for the proposed use.
Staff believes the proposed area is suitable for short-term rental.
G, the recommendations of permanent or professional staff, we will get to. H, whether the proposed conditional use would be in conformance to and further enhance the implementation of the comprehensive plan.
It is staff's opinion that this land use does align with the socioeconomic goals and objectives set forth in the comprehensive development plan.
I, whether the relative gain to the public health, safety, and general welfare outweighs the hardship imposed on the applicant by not upgrading the value of the property by approving the proposed conditional use.
Staff believes that when suggested guidelines are followed, public health, safety, and general welfare concerns are minimized or eliminated. Staff feels the benefits of approving this conditional use outweigh any negative impacts.
J, whether the proposed conditional use, if it complies with all the conditions upon which the approval is made contingent, as authorized in Article 24 of these regulations, will not adversely affect the property in the area affected.
Staff believes no definitive evidence exists that the proposed use would negatively influence property values, create health issues, or any additional potential safety concerns. Therefore, staff is of the opinion that this land use is appropriate, compatible, and will not adversely affect this property or the surrounding properties in the guidelines if the guidelines are followed. If health, safety, or welfare guidelines are not followed, the property would be removed or suspended from participation in the Airbnb program. Staff feels that if such participation is removed or suspended, the conditional use should be also.
In case such other factors as may be relevant from the facts and evidence presented in the application.
See comments below.
Do you want to do your recommendation, or should we open up public comment? You want to just continue to finish yours?
Can I just talk about the conditions that I would suggest?
Yep.
Okay. So the CUP conditions that would be suggested with this application, should it be good grief, approved?
Yeah, right.
The CUP should be reviewed every year for compliance with the property maintain annual registration with the county. The conditions of approval are subject to change as there are certain conditions included in the annual registration that may be updated from time to time. CUP holders will be notified prior to annual registration when conditions have changed to allow a reasonable time for them to comply. So that's that annual registration that's held with the county. If certain safety requirements or such need to be updated, then those can be changed from time to time. In addition to the annual registration requirements, if well water is used for drinking purposes, the water should be tested annually for potability, and the wastewater system must be approved by the Marion County Environmental Health Department.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And those don't go into effect until it becomes a short-term rental. If he's using it for personal.
That's correct. Yes. And we can specify that too if that makes more sense in a motion.
Anybody on the board have any questions? If not, I'm going to open up public comment for this case. If anybody has anything, please state your name and provide your comment. And if everybody wishes to. If there's none, we'll close public comment. Any other questions? Any questions for Sharon? The applicant?
I like it.
All right.
Let him build.
That's good.
That's for a comment, I gave you one.
Thank you.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve conditional use permit with item 1 and 2 conditions that Sharon outlined to be in effect once the property is converted to a short-term rental.
I second that motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to recommend approval of the conditional use permit as presented with the 2 conditions that Sharon presented as listed in front of you, and that it would take effect once it's converted to a short-term rental. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. I'm not sure if Anita was there or not. But
Anita, can you
I
hear us?
said aye. Yeah, I did.
we're still going with that. Anybody else who is on?
Caller number 1, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Mr. Gouer, can you hear us? Maybe they gave up on us, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
If you can hear us, put in the chat, please, that you can hear us. Or if you can't hear us, you won't know that I asked you to put it in the chat.
You know, if they are here, they would be, somebody would have been.
Okay, Anita can hear us.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Just making sure you're still there, Anita.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm still here.
We got thumbs up from Mr. Gouer also.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So motion passed. you will go before the, Sharon will have a date for you here.
Yes, so this piece will go before the commissioners, the Board of County Commissioners on June 9th. And they will make the final determination there. We'll send the planning commission's recommendation to them. Okay?
Thank you, Doug.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming in.
You're welcome to stay, you're welcome to go, it's up to you.
No pressure, right? Okay. And there is also a 14-day protest period. I'll just throw that out. If anyone wishes to protest the application within that notification area, they're able to do so through the clerk's department. Okay.
All right, moving on. Item number 5, text amendments to the Marion County zoning and subdivision regulations. Amendments to be considered pertaining to Article 27, wind energy pump conversion system. Other amendments may also be considered at the public hearing.
All right. I'll give
You got
it a,
something to kind of kick us off with.
yes. The request to review this, the proposed language in Article 27 that was provided in your packets was a directive from the Board of Commissioners on April 14th. They directed the Planning and Zoning Board to review legal components and consider certain proposed revisions to Article 27.
Okay. And so we have this set of proposed changes, open to other changes. I guess where do we want to start? What are your thoughts? What are your
Also, this was, just to throw this out, the public hearing was noticed. Sorry, let me get to that page. On April 30th of 2025, and notification letters were sent to city and township officials on April 30th of 2025.
has any legal counsel look this over
No.
for the county? No. So I'm trying to gather the thoughts here. I mean, I guess our options, we go through it line by line. We
Well, there'd be probably 3 different options. The first one is planning commission is in support of reviewing it.
Yes.
We need to go through it line by line, and we're looking at several nights. Obviously, legal counsel needs review. So then the planning commission should probably decide if you want to get legal review before going through line by line. Because if it's inappropriate or not, it's something that wouldn't be legally defendable to do, should it be eliminated before we have a discussion? And the final option would be to look at something different.
Thanks for the words. I lost it. So I guess that's, what's the feeling? Do we have a pretty good consensus? Do we want to wholesale go through these line by line? Is that what the board feels is right? Are there other options? Are there other, what I'm afraid of, before we take a lot of time to do this, because we're looking at
meetings, special meetings, you can comment. So
I went through this document and let's just take item 2 that says all aspects shall conform to the following setback. So for example, closer to A is no turbines shall be located closer than the greater of 1320 feet or 2.5, blah, 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 in a public right of way. So previous, item talked roads versus right of way, which is a major change, massive change. And it went from, I believe, 500, now it's 1320. So when I looked at all of the different, changes on there, basically, there is no way wind energy can exist in this county with these setbacks. So if we're gonna agree to 2, then we throw out the document and just put a statement that says we don't do anything. Because this does away with wind energy. So,
It's doing it by regulation.
doing it by, and they say, and if you read on regulations, regulations are supposed to be fair and reasonable. Not so closed in that, you have a, small area in the middle of a mile section that you can put one turbine. So it's just prohibited. So I don't want to spend a lot of time if we're going to live with these,
Yeah.
we just do away with the whole document and just close down shop and say that we're not going to be proactive, or we're not going to be receptive to wind energy, because this is not receptive in any way, shape, or form. In my opinion. So,
Yeah, it's very clear, but it's
it's
not allowed.
It's totally slanted to no wind energy. There is no way that you could put a turbine in this county with these requirements. In my opinion, you may be able to fit one, but.
Well, it's gonna favor the large landowners. So any of the smaller landowners that
Zero chance. It's really.
probably benefit more from it are out with just that one.
Not even, if the right of way kills it, the roads.
Yeah.
Let's say you own 10 square miles and you have roads through there. Those roads, basically the setback on roads, property lines.
Pretty large property.
Yeah, but there's roads in there and right of ways in there. And those roads and right of ways all have setbacks, and basically you're.
Start over then.
So maybe someone sees it differently than I do, but I wrote down, one's changed from 1,000 to 1,760, the other's 15 to 2,750, the other's height plus 50, which is basically 550 to 1,760, 500 to 1,320, and the document we have on the street today is pretty restrictive in terms of setback. This is just basically shrinks from all directions, and so I don't see a lot of use in terms of going through this document. It's really a decision at the county level whether we want wind energy.
You like time.
Oh, sorry.
So
So your feeling would probably be you would be more to say, recommend this, let's send this back as basically we recommend none of these amendments. Just kind of
throw this out.
throw it out. That's basically how you would.
Throw it out. It has no value for us. It's a poison pill for women.
I think you gotta look at it line by line. You could take number 2 and change some of those. But still, it's all restricted. It's very restricted.
But we should probably make that
It's
suggestion.
it's one person's axe to grind that completely prohibits it.
So it's our job to look them
So
over
then
and
it's-
to come back with something, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
we
what
went
they
through
are.
it line by line. review. You could start to look at population density and maybe move it out. So there are areas within the county that you could put it, but maybe it's not in the more denser populated areas of the county. But it would take looking through it line by line. So maybe the better thing would be is to see once, is there anything in here going over a legal review standpoint that should be automatically eliminated first, and then go through what was left line by line.
Well, then you brought up an option of population density. Rather than create a document that's completely overbearing, unable to use anywhere, about looking at population density areas and just take those out and use our current regulations.
That's where I struggle, because we spent a lot of time on these regulations, the ones we have. And yeah, maybe they don't fit all, but they were the best option, the board thought at that time, to protect those that weren't. And also, at the same time, I mean, there's two people on both sides of the aisle here. There's those that don't, but there's also those that do. And so, how do we protect the property rights for those that don't, with those that do? Well, the best way is regulations. And as you said, regulations can't be so restrictive. I mean, they're not real regulations, then they're basically bans. So the regs we have, I feel, are a good set. We've been through them. I personally have been through them probably 3 different times. And they get more restrictive every time because it's just been the growing trend. This feels like I'm kind of like Brett. And it's not just the setbacks. It's kind of how many different ways can you figure out how to basically keep these things from going. Yeah. So whether we do keep the regs we have, but like Dave said, restrict some higher densely populated areas, whether that's a township, whether that's more room around cities, I feel like that's more of a viable option than a lot of the things that are in this.
Russ, I'd be curious of your opinion. You've been through this sort of deal.
Well, generally, I feel the same. So it starts with me at the top as far as a policy directive. Are we looking as a county to still allow wind turbines in the county? And if the answer is yes, do we need protections for certain more populated areas or growing areas or more better protection for our cities within the county? And we've talked about this since last fall, and there's ways in which we can map out areas that would allow for expansion or prohibition, areas that are prohibited from development, whether it's these 4 townships, a greater halo around our cities, and maybe some other locations. I don't know what that answer is. We can work towards that if that's the task we're given. And just looking at tonight, we have a public hearing notice with potential text amendments in front of us. The procedure would be obviously to go through this as we would any text amendment, hear from the good people that took time tonight to show up to voice their concerns one way or the other. And then you make a recommendation. We're tasked with making a recommendation to the county commissioners. We make that recommendation. That recommendation sounds like there's going to be some opposition or recommendation to deny these particular texts. So it doesn't solve the issue, but it helps maybe the county commissioners frame the direction that we're given in a little bit more concise way. So whether we want to go through in looking at some of these proposed regulatory changes, I think some of them are valid for discussion. Decommissioning agreements has historically been one of those things that is nebulous, that is just a gray area. Can they be enforced? We're dealing with multinational corporations versus a rural Kansas county on resources to fight legal battles, right? You hate that for that to be a factor, but it's a factor. It's a reality of life. One other thing complicating the pace of this discussion is the lack of that legal review. My understanding is the county entered into an agreement with both Diamond Vista and Sunflower, but specifically Sunflower since it's in the south part of the county. We need to know how restrictive that is. We obviously can't do a regulatory taking and create regulations that are going to run contra to the agreement that the county has already established with Sunflower or Stead. I would feel more comfortable making a decision when I get that answer. Yes, we can go ahead and restrict it. The contract would allow us to prohibit expansion. Or obviously, no, we have allowed in for Orsted some expansion. We can regulate it that way. We have 2 projects. Those project footprints may expand up to 10%, 20 turbines, whatever we come up with after researching it, and then come up with that modification. But to put, it's always bad policy to create regulation with the intent of prohibition. Go ahead. We have the legal authority to be black and white prohibited. I've done that in other counties to great success. We've had those counties that have prohibited all renewable energy. We haven't talked about solar, but wind and solar. Even generation tie lines that bring energy into a county from a neighboring county's alternative wind or alternative energy systems. So I certainly work with one county that almost to a person is completely against renewable energy systems in any fashion. So that can be done, and that is the best tool to use in this circumstance. And I sat here through, quite frankly, the first zoning action, kind of reading some of these public comments that Sharon received this afternoon. And, I don't know if it's 80-20, 90-10 on the opposition to support for these things, but and after Sunflower Field was approved a few years ago, I certainly met with a number of concerned citizens after those public hearings and laid out the same groundwork. Maybe Marion County can step up and say, look, we have 2 wind. We produce X megawatts of energy. We have 2 fields in our county. We have shouldered our share. Where are the other 104 counties at? Right? And make those and make our rationale based on that. There are options, as Mr. Mueller mentioned. I just don't think that it's these. I don't think this is our best option at this point. So again, by changing the regulations, it makes the statement that yes, we're still open for business for 3rd, 4th wind field coming in to the county. And I don't really think that that's at least the sentiments that I've been reading. The vast majority would be against that. So look, it's time to draw a line in the sand and say, look, we want no more development in the county, and here's how we're going to go about doing that. And the easiest way would be to prohibit any applications within townships or section range township, make it an easy legal description, and then we can map that out on the zoning map. So
This would be the 3rd time I've asked you this. I just want to be darn sure. But it's my duty as a board member, this right here, to represent the constituents that I represent, or is this my opinion?
we live in a representative democracy, so I would say that A, you are appointed, the commissioner appointing you to serve on this board had the implicit intention of you serving not only his or her constituents, but the constituents of the county at large. That's not always the answer to a lot of planning commissioners throughout the state that I know. Looking at you, Wichita, Sedgwick County. home builders are very well represented back home. So, but no, yeah, I would say the 11 of you are tasked with that duty. And it means, I think, a little bit more the smaller the community that you serve.
What's this agreement you talk about with the county and Sunflower? Who's got the details on when can we see it?
I'm looking at you, Sharon.
There's some agreement with Sunflower?
Yeah.
With
So,
Orsted.
so the pilot,
Orsted?
I'm assuming it's the pilot agreement.
For expansion.
Oh, for
Yeah.
expansion, there is no agreement right now, no application on the table for expansion. There was a comprehensive development agreement through a resolution in 2019 that was signed. There's verbiage in it that said that the county would not prohibit them from expansion.
And
You take that for what it's worth, and I think that the definition of expansion would be of somebody above my pay grade. I think that we still have the ability to guide expansion, whether or not you prohibit additional wind farms and such, or however, I don't know.
Does it mean expansion within the original footprint? Does it mean the expansion outside of the original footprint? Great question. That resolution isn't definitive. So guess who makes it definitive? The district court downtown. So
where is that recorded? Do we have a document that states that?
Yes.
Can we get a copy of that?
Sure. It's actually resolution 2019-21.
see that in your dreams?
I do. Actually. And I'd be happy to send a copy of that to the board.
Thank you.
So whether or not that necessitates the county commission working with officials operating Sunflower to renegotiate that and define better what that means and keep it out of court. I can't imagine that being shorter than 6 months to a year, that type of negotiation. I don't know, I could be wrong, but, again, we want to sequence this. What we're acting on now, acting on a text amendment to the regulation should be the final step after all the dust is settled and there's no smoke in the air and we can see clearly what our direction is. And here are the fine details of these modifications. As I mentioned, not everything in the proposed text amendments in front of you isn't unworthy of discussion. Whether they're agreeable to you all or not, I think it's premature to ask that question without knowing some of these fundamental legal questions at the start. And the progress of getting those answers, I certainly can't speak to. It seems like we've had at least 6 months of lead up time to this, not 9 months of lead up time to this. So help us help you, I guess, is the kind of what I'm hearing from this planning commission.
There were a lot of things in here that I thought should have been in here, like the lighting, even when the state is saying, they put it out there first that this blinking light thing needs to be changed over, and then they gave them ample years to do it. Still hasn't been done. I mean, there are certain things that look like they were missing in the first place, and 500 feet doesn't sound like much to me when it comes to setbacks, so I feel like there would be a little bit of leeway if we did go line by line. I think there's a lot of critical stuff in here too, though. But if you look at other counties that maybe they've looked into this too and kind of compare, I think we could use some more regulation than what was original.
Well, after you clarifying that, Russ, I don't know what happened with the rest of the board, but my phone has rang over 25 times from people expressing their opinion. And, I at the very least feel like it's my duty to do something. I don't know what, or how to do it. But we got the commissioners telling us to do something, and we got at least calls that I've got, being told they're asked to do something. I feel like we need to do something.
I would follow up with that. I've heard the same thing. We've got to take action. Maybe every single one of these requests in here are not applicable
Right.
and they don't get, applied, but I think we've got to look at this and do something, especially with the more populated areas. Maybe those parts of the county, there's not going to be residential growth in. So we can look at that, but looking at where we have population density has got to be a consideration for a lot of these requests.
Also, Russ, what would be the pathway if, let's just say the Board of County Commissioners did prohibit future land development? What would be our duty after that? What would be, if everybody is understanding that this is what the county commissioners are wanting from this document, and we was to kick something back to the county commissioners, and at least say that we need more direction, or more specific direction, what would that look like?
So certainly, if we get a definition that the will of the county, or the direction the county is wanting us to move is a prohibition, whether it's a complete prohibition of any expansion or new, we've got what we got, we will operate what we have, but we're not going to get more. Then we would do two things. We would come in to you as a first step, very similar to what tonight is. Sharon would notice a public hearing for two amendments. One would be to the comprehensive plan to stick in revised policy into our planning document, which is somewhat quiet on renewable energy, but we would put in some land use goals to the comprehensive plan that specifies the new policy change. We want to protect the rural character of Marion County. We don't like to see the further intrusion of industrial scale renewable energy systems come into the county, blah, 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 into the comprehensive plan. So we will amend the comprehensive plan at the same time that we also have a public hearing notice for text amendments to the zoning regulations. So we would take those concurrently through the process. So you would first hear the comprehensive plan amendments, vote to recommend approval of those, and then whatever language we create over a few months to prohibit or further restrict the development, we would then hear that second and then take both of those to the county commission. And both public hearings would be obviously allowed comment, et cetera, et cetera.
So what's our feeling? I mean, personally, I still think there's good places for land in this county, not necessarily one of the areas you can focus on. So, I mean, I feel like I leave people out to just throw a ban out there, but, I mean, is that where we're headed? Is that, I mean, like I said, there's still people on both sides of the aisle. It seems like we hear from those opposed more often than we hear from those in favor.
I would say I don't want to necessarily cut anybody out from making any extra money. I mean, everybody wants to make a little extra money, but at the same time, I think the big thing, the way I see it and the way people have talked to me is definitely the population density and where the expansion is looking at moving, where I've been hearing contracts being signed and stuff. I feel like that's probably the wrong place within the county, from what I've been hearing, and think that maybe we need to look at amending it to reflect that on a population density side of things and square mile or.
So we're talking like an overlay district on population density? I mean, is that, basically prohibiting in certain parts of the county? I'm just throwing things out there.
That would be kind of my feeling on it. You look at, okay, you have the townships and stuff, and maybe you look at total density in that area and what looks like growth opportunities, and then you overlay a district area and prohibited in this section of this part of the county border.
And if we go
Or
back,
make those requirements within that density area more restrictive. So to do it, they would have to follow more tighter setbacks.
Have their, go ahead, David, you have
No,
something?
that's-
So you're saying maybe even still have it allowable, but have the tighter setbacks in that overlay district?
I mean, then it,
More regulations?
more regulations for that area, it makes it a lot more of a challenge, but then it still leaves the door open for wind energy, conservative energy. And then if they wanted to build, right, they've got two choices. They've got the easy route where there's large open land where they can just say, hey, I don't have all this stuff that I gotta meet. I can easily put it out here. Okay, well, everybody's okay with that and it's not near the argument. And then you have the denser populated area where if they want to put it in there, they've got to match all of this stuff. It'd make it a lot more challenging and it would make probably more work for us in the long run because then you're gonna have.
Whole other set.
Well, that's where you come back and just get over
Just
population density.
restrict them, just restrict them in the overlay district and basically what you're.
When I was in third grade, Mr. Souders, he asked a question and everybody voted. The majority of who voted, that's what went on. So I was just curious about possibility of maybe kicking something back to the commissioners and maybe have them do it on a township level. If everybody in that township wants them, they get them. Everybody, or a majority of the people don't want them, and whoever lives in that township's got to live by the majority rule. That's a simplified way of doing it.
But that township's gonna benefit from the economic, like tax revenue and stuff like that, so.
I mean, I don't
Even if they're
disagree with
against
it.
that.
I don't disagree with that, but that would be up to them. There's some people that it ain't worth $5,000 a month to have.
No, I understand that. It's
Or-
personal choice.
Right, it is. So, I mean, and for other people, absolutely put 15 of them on,
So say you did that, right? What would be, then should we set out kind of an outline before we do it back to the commissioners of how far that extends out outside the county?
Well, that would take it out of our hands as the planning commission. That'd be a vote thing with the commission.
It'd either be a yes or a no.
Yeah, it would have nothing to do with
Or yes
us.
or no.
And then once the vote came in, that's what we,
What's the logistics of that, Russ?
I'm just throwing something out there. I don't know, that might be right.
so I've run into a question of referendums in the state of Kansas. Let's just put it up to a vote of the public. And the state of Kansas, I believe, is one of 30 or 35 states that allow referendums that are non-binding. There are certain states, California is probably the best example. Most everything along that Pacific coast, those 3 states allow binding referendums. So this issue would just go to a vote if there was, in California's case, I think 10,000 people to put it on the election ballot. And it's binding. If California voters say no, then it's no, regardless of anybody else's state or local governance. So really a referendum in Kansas is think of it as a strong survey of the people. That's all it is. 83% of Marion County residents who voted against renewable energy or wind energy in this case. That doesn't bind our decision. It doesn't really move the needle any further. It doesn't answer any questions other than it gives a fairly decent accounting of who is for it and who is against it. So from that, and these things are, in my estimation, are fairly expensive to do. So there's really no reward for the effort. I think with a county of our size, there's certainly ability to gauge what the majority opinion is of the top. Yeah. So really, I don't think that moves it forward. Townships have no zoning authority in the state of Kansas, so we're still dealing with the 11 of us and the 5 of the county commissioners to make these decisions. So it would certainly pay, if the 4 townships or all the townships in Marion County chose at their next meeting to have a vote amongst their board members if we're for it or against it, would probably aid the commissioners, the county commissioners, in formulating their ideas of how much of an issue and what that problem is. I think we've heard from the city of Gossel. I don't know, maybe not formally, maybe just
Yeah,
maybe not as a council.
that was a separate study done by the city of Gusel, I believe. We're some constituents in that area.
So we are getting a lot of that information without the need for an election that's non-binding. So
It was good information.
it's good information. So, one thing sitting here thinking out loud as this progresses and we move forward with it, I can try to dummy up a map of the county that would show what an overlay district would look like for the county. Mainly prohibited areas for expansion or development. And then we have a picture to look off of and argue off of the issue off of in future meetings. But,
One thing to consider, where does the county want to go with residential expansion? The county's losing people every year. 65 people a year are losing in population. You start putting these wind turbines close to the densely populated areas today, you're gonna restrict that. So I think our commissioners have got to decide what's the vision for the county in order to help decide where we want these overlay districts. If it's a area that's probably never going to have more dense population, maybe the turbines go up there. But you put it over by Gospel, you get closer to Hillsborough, you want Marion to expand, you got to think about those things too.
Any more thoughts, Brad?
I like the thought of the population density has a better ring than coming up with a document that just totally restricts the whole county. I think we've got to, someone put this out. Future of Marion County depends on us. I think it's excellent. I really do. I was very impressed. We put it together. We got to think about revenues. We got to think about 10 years from now. We got to think about, do we grow this county? Jobs, not running people off, but jobs and revenue coming in. And I think the wind farms have treated us pretty darn well. So I don't see where they've been bad actors, but maybe I'm not looking close enough.
I guess I kind of feel along those same lines, Brad. I'm more comfortable with an overlay district than wholesale change Article 27.
The whole issue for me comes back to landowner. Landowner has the opportunity for additional revenue or an additional opportunity. Should they have that opportunity? Is it in the right location? And there are some operations that aren't in those places. But at the same time, if you're going to apply this to wind energy, okay, where are we going to apply to oil and gas? We're going to use the same standard. We're going to use the same setbacks. We're going to use the same standards all the way through these lots. People start complaining about smell. Are we being extremely scrutinizing one industry over another? Again, it comes back to landowner, and this district does not. Population density.
I'd be in favor of looking at the population density and also removal, once they have outlived their, making sure that we cover the county in itself when it comes time to raise those structures. Not all the other stuff.
I think there's other points in here we've got to at least consider. So for example, some of these studies prior to putting the turbine up, I've had experiences, not with turbines, but with, what was an oil rig or what they were doing about 2 miles away, but we had line of sight internet, and we had it for a year. They put it up and started interfering with that signal. We had to get a different internet provider. So I think as you put these up, we've got to take into consideration for the studies on spectrum analysis, interference with emergency signals for fire and EMS. Internet is a key part of our lives today. Cell phone signals, if you don't have them out here, you can't call. So there are suggestions in here I think we need to take up. We haven't even talked about past number 2 on here. I think there's other things we've got to consider.
I mean, I'm your thoughts as far as property rights, and in regards to other industries, when those industries were developed, and you can't go drilling oil wells in certain places, and I feel like we're in virgin territory here as far as the impacts of what the wind does. I actually own some property down amongst some of the wind turbines in the south part of the county. There are some things that I wasn't aware of, and I definitely don't feel like I have a right to tell a man what to do on his property, no more than he has a right to tell me what to do. But whenever it has the potential of costing me money, or somebody else money, yeah. And in regard to feedlots, there are certain setback rules that are in place because of those things. Mitigation factors to deal with the smell and stuff. And I think all that stuff kind of comes after the fact, a lot like some of our changes that we've already did come in after the fact. But if what somebody does on their property devalues another man's property, I'm not sure that's right. I don't like houses, so it doesn't bother me, but that property that I have down there, nobody's gonna buy it. So if I had the idea of selling property for a house, that would devalue that property for that purpose. So, but there again, I agree with you. I don't like telling a man what he can and can't do on his own property.
Yes, I would like to throw out a big thing for me, and people that I've talked to is wind energy is one thing. I think there's maybe more effective ways that it can be done over the wind turbines that are currently within the county. And I agree, yeah, you should be able to do what you want on your ground, but I think there's better options for wind energy out there.
And then I don't know if I'm supposed to say it or not either, but all the calls that I got was just, it was from people I don't even know. I don't even know how they knew I was on the board.
One thing we haven't talked about, but I think is our duty is the health, and I will send out to Sharon so she can send out to everybody. I have some studies out of Denmark that do show negative effects long-term on heart rate variability of folks in the distance of these turbines. And thing to keep in mind is, you may not know what heart rate variability is, but these watches, if you're wearing them, they track it. And they do lead to some issues with your heart, the sound and stuff. So I'll send those studies out so you guys can take a look at that.
So what's our feeling? I guess we've kind of talked two options. So it sounds to me. We're going through these, or we're looking at another. Yes, something we're kind of trying to summarize. For more densely populated areas, maybe cities, something like that. I'm just kind of trying to get some information.
Listen to the public and undecided?
Yes, I'm trying to get a consensus and then we'll kind of go from there. Yeah.
I think the overlay district is definitely probably the leading point. I would say that I still think there may be some bits and pieces out of here that could be.
The thing about reviewing these, my opinion, before we review them, I would prefer legal counsel look it over. Because otherwise, we may be talking about something for hours. So that's the one thing I do throw out there. So if we do end up doing that, just because I'm not educated well enough to know what's legally enforceable and not, and so that's would be my strong opinion.
I think there's an option to, I agree, get the legal review, but I think there's an option even with the overlay districts. We need to consider what's in here.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what we're going to hear. Well, open public comment. Please state your name for the record. Please keep it short. There's a lot of people. We got a ways to go here yet tonight. Yeah, 2 minutes probably is usually what I do. I prefer, even if you, I prefer not to hear the same thing over and over again. So I appreciate it if you are opposed or maybe rather than repeating, just, I don't know how to say that, but I mean, it's, I have a feeling it will be redundant here. So
If there's mirrored comments, maybe add why it's personally affecting me.
thank you. That's what I was thinking. So like I said, state your name. You'll have 2 minutes. Ma'am, your hand's up. I will pick you first.
So can I do, if someone is going to speak, please be sure that you've signed in,
Yes.
at least before you.
Yes.
My name is Susan Thompson, and my husband and I recently bought an 88-foot tract out on 9th Street. Our plan is to build a house up there. So we bought into Marion County. I'm from this area anyway. I raised my kids here. And so we've spent quite a bit of money coming out here. I've heard all of you talk about the populated areas. We're going to be in the country. And so we don't want to be left out just because we're not in Marion proper or in Peabody or Folksville. And so we've spent a lot of money in the county here already, and we've got the property cleaned up now. And we're getting ready to build probably $600,000 or $700,000 home out there. So we don't want the windmills devaluing our property like the gentleman spoke about. That's one of the big concerns we have. And we like to quiet. This is the neighborhood where we're going to build. And so additional to that, you talk about 65 people moving out of the county. Well, you got 2 people coming in, possibly. We don't have turbines out there. If we have turbines out there, we may sell our property and move somewhere else and not build our house here. We're getting ready to break ground, but we're not sure now. We're thinking, do we really want to build here? Do we want to live near turbines? You talk about not building near the populated areas. My granddaughter lives in Olney, and those wind turbines are on top of them. They can hear them from their porch. So you guys got them way too close to Olney. My grandson just closed on a house today in Peabody. So there's another person moving in the county for you. So not everybody's moving out of Marion County. There's a lot of people trying to come in. The other thing I would say is you don't have to be against solar, but maybe try the solar panels like they have in Butler County. They're non-intrusive. The energy stays here. It doesn't go to another county or another place. So there are ways to do solar that aren't so expensive. And I appreciate your time you gave me.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I feel like I need to.
Your name?
My name is Lori Peter. We have been involved with the wind farms for many years. As this lady here, we bought property out near Albany. We specifically looked for land in the Flint Hills to be away from wind farms. We didn't know at the time there was a legal description of the Flint Hills that was protected and Flint Hills that was not protected. We bought the property. I'll speak facts. We have wind turbine, we have the whole wind farm out our backyard. There are 2 wind turbines or 3 wind turbines in the non-participation zone, just right at the edge of the property. We do get flicker twice a year. You can close the shades, doesn't matter. Gives you a headache. Try to watch TV, you can't do anything. It gives you a headache. The lights are still flashing. We came out to get the black skies, the dark night skies. Now it is full of red lights. We hear the turbines, just like people had spoken about when we were researching it. It sounds like there's a jet airplane in our backyard. It varies depending on the wind. It gets louder and worse. Sometimes you can hear and feel, as commented, the thump, thump, thump in your body, depending on the wind. Sometimes you don't hear it, but most of the time you hear it. We can also hear the grinding, the metal screeching, just churning and churning nonstop. It's just not pleasant to be out in the 10 acres we bought to be out there. We bought it for the night sky. We bought it for the birds. We bought it to listen to the frogs, not to hear thump, 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 thump all day long. So while you don't want to take the time to read it, we live it every minute of every day. It is your duty to read this because we live it every minute of every day.
I appreciate the sentiment in the room, but please stay on this.
I'm Eric Rust. The premise that we as a county and all the other counties have to have solar immunities is ridiculous. Shoulder this, I want the rest, no, we don't have to shoulder anything. If you want to have wind farms, it's fine, but we don't have an obligation to do it. It's destroyed our night sky, as you said. It affects the animals. We're asking that you read. If you don't read it, at least take a minute. Because I'm explaining something. Most of us want these regulations. We don't want them to expand further. If you want to grandfather the ones that's here, fine. If the Danes want to put some on Martha's Vineyard and Cape Cod, great. But our political class can look at it. We don't want it. What kind of footprint are we leaving here? The windmill itself, when you tear it down, you've got what, $1.5 or $2 million of escrow to tear it down? I'm told, I don't know. Can that take them down? Them giant cement blocks that you've got in the ground that seeded these monstrosities, how are you going to get them out? We don't want them. The cleanup, how is this going to affect all the wildlife? Driving down Sunflower, you mowed down everything to put the infrastructure in for this? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. And the idea that you don't want to fight it legally, we do. We don't want it here. If we have the Danes or some globalists want to sue us, so what? We elected people. And these people, we want them to do what we want. If we have some type of referendum or something to vote on it, that's great. This is a democracy, is it not? Listen to what we have to say. That's it.
Any other volunteers? I got him first.
I'm Quentin Dewar, live over by Gossel. I hear talk about the property rights and no, don't want to infringe on property rights. but wind turbines are big, and they affect a large area around them. They affect a lot of other property rights, property landowners around them. And so just saying one person can put one up because we don't want to infringe on their property rights. But we're gonna allow them to infringe on other people around them. Like the setbacks, I mean, I think they're too small right now. Like the 500 feet, basically, if that falls down, it's gonna be, free fall on the road right now. 500 feet from a participating resident. Do the residents that are putting these up know that they're in a danger zone? If something happens to that wind turbine, they're in a danger zone. They're in danger of being hurt by the wind turbine. And the setbacks from non-participating residents. Right now, there's 1,000 feet. Well, the danger zone for those wind farms is 1,700 feet. So basically, you're saying they're infringing on the property rights of the neighbors around them, and they're putting the neighbors that don't want these in a danger zone. So, I mean, we need to review these. Also, decommissioning. So I brought this up to commissioners.
I'll just ask it about those 2 minutes.
Decommissioning. So right now, Sunflower has obtained a line of credit of $50,000 per wind turbine to get this done. It's going to take at least $250,000, probably $500,000 to take a wind turbine. So where's the extra money coming from? We need to make sure that's an escrow account. There's bonded money behind these to make sure there's money to take these down.
This gentleman over here is trying to do
State your name.
Tim Young, sorry. He's doing a neat thing, putting up a barnuminium or a little silo, housing deal. And all that hoops he has to jump through to get permission from all the neighbors. Why do the landowners not have to get permission from the neighbors to put up a huge window? I mean, where's that going? And then just a couple things. I mean, with you're taking Hillsborough, you take all the residents and you pull them and get their ideas and thoughts. They're not living with these things in their backyard. Put one right in the middle of Hillsborough, one right in the middle of Marion, and see what they think about that. They're not happy to deal with them because they're not in the country. And you've got much more population right in the major areas that are voting for it. But are we seeing the benefits of the power here? It's being shipped out of state. I'm sure it is. I can't say whether it is, and you guys can tell me. But it really needs to be a pool of the people that are actually going to be affected. If it's going to be voted on, it needs to be voted on by the people that have to stare at these things out their backyard. I've got some property south of Hillsborough, and them things are unsightly to stare at. And you can, the property's 3 miles away, and like she said, you can hear the thump, thump, thump. I can hear it 3 miles away. So, that's all I've got.
Andy Cameron, Chase, I had a question for you. Have you noticed any productivity losses in your cattle? I mean, we were right up underneath there. Any attitude changes in that?
Other than their necks are sore, no. They said there. No, in all seriousness, I run cow-calf pairs, so it's hard to make. If I had stockers, maybe.
Just curious on that, The other thing is, what benefits does this county really receive from here? Like somebody else has already mentioned. I mean, I don't know. I'm blessed enough to live in a valley. I only have to drive a half mile up the hill and I can see both of them. I can't hear them, but I got a lip leak down all this thing. And then what happens when they start leaking? You go down south, you go down to Oklahoma, and there's tons of them. With just black. You go up north into northern Kansas, there's a lot of them like that too. Where is our ecological benefit from that? And what about, if the legs break? That renders that land underneath there completely useless. You can't hay it for cattle, you can't graze cattle on it, because they're gonna get fiberglass splinters in their mouths, their digestive systems, and you've got dead cattle. There's a lot of cattle in this county. There's more cattle in this county than there are people. And, I mean, those people that are in the population areas may not see that, or they may be offended by the fact that, hey, there's some feedlots in here. Oh, there's stupid cows. They stink. But that's putting food on their table. That's putting clothing on their backs. That's a lot of this county runs off of, in my opinion. I think that's pretty much it.
Linda Peters, I'm a council, but I'm also a Liberty Township trustee. So when I got this notice, it didn't say we were going to talk about pro or for wind farms or not for wind farms. What that meeting said we were going to talk about wind energy conversion system overlay district regulations. So when I come to this and I hear you guys say, I don't want to look at this, well, that's what the meeting was supposed to be about. So now all of a sudden, we're deciding we're going to have wind farms or we're not going to have wind farms. Some of these things apply, some of them don't. But I thought the zoning board was supposed to be looking at these things and maybe saying that doesn't work. I agree with the legal part of it, that's legal. But these, what I read, that protected everyone. It protected the people that had the wind farms. It protected the people that didn't have the wind farms. And I think that's important to think about. It protects everybody. And some of these things might not apply. And some of you might be sick of looking at these things. But I thought my notice was that you were to look at
Anybody else?
Charles, you want? I want to say one thing, when we had that meetings in 19, we had everybody talking, deal back. We got 1,000 feet border on our ground, so we could not fight. We fought them, we come close to winning. And we lost all that 1,000 feet protection. They gave us plus 500 feet falling distance. We bet non-participants, we could have had over a mile ground better for them. And there are a lot of them around that. Make like goals. We need some more things done. We didn't get what we talked about in front of you guys. And nobody will tell me more.
Johnny Grant. Brad brought up that paper. I really thought it was a good idea. I think you ought to set a precedent that somebody puts their name to that. So, we're asking all these people to state their name, go on the record, and then they're getting to be anonymous. That's not really fair. But I do believe that they should have the right now with their speech. I just think there needs to be some accountability.
My name's Mary Strokan. I live in Burns, in the city park there. Couple of things.
We don't have a wind farm down there yet. I'm terrified. You can see the lights that won't come on. It is a ways away. But about 2 years ago, much to our surprise, we started putting humongous light poles, what do you call them? The big ones, we don't have to talk about them. 2 darn poles, all the way from Florence, south of now look at us, because we, like, people every day, we had people move because it was so cool. For years, our home, and their house was very nice. They moved up, blame them. They actually downsized it, couldn't find it, I guess. So that, we have no control. We have no say so what happens. Something like that, that was a beautiful view. You pop up over the hill, coming from the south, and there we were. It's just a pretty beautiful little town. Now it's just ugly, horrible. Fixed and mad, everything like that. So I'm going to say that. And the other thing I wanted to say is you keep talking about, I kind of feel like you're all leaning towards overlay district things, which basically, if I understand it correctly, protects Hillsborough and Marion. Right? You're not going to put disturbance close to them, you're going to put them close to Burns, you're going to put them close to one little town. And I did see a report that shows the funds so far and how the existing funds have benefited the county so far. That's $100. Anything and everything. These burn cases, but I'm real, Hillsborough, some of these other ones. We're out there in the nowhere. And they us getting on the negative. So, it's not good, right? I don't like it. I lived in Mohawk County for a long time. They brought a bunch of them.
I was gonna wake up and be like,
They protected them. They protected them, but everybody else. It's one of them all the time. They used to haul it out to them again. Everybody else.
Rusty Trader, I live on the 90th, and I just say watching the contracts because utility companies seem to break, they sell, and the new companies don't want to get existing contracts. We've got 2 utilities in park around right now that have in the box the last couple of years. Neither one's on the previous contract. One you can't even talk to, you can't even get them on the phone. So they somebody else, they'll do whatever they want.
Anybody else?
Yes, I would like to just comment on one thing that seems to be overlooked by a lot of people who live in the planning zone. And that is everybody is so happy with the pilot agreement that we got, whether it's 200,000 a year or 300,000 a year, people make a profit off this money. But they only need to know how much money is losing by the amount of property taxes is not paid. If they just pay their fair share, we should actually pay $2-3 million a year in taxes. But instead, we settle for $200,000-400,000. The county's taking it in the shorts when we winter months. And what's happening to us? It's just not, it doesn't even make sense. Not economically, it's just not good common sense. It's just good what happens down here. And these are facts. It's their own figures.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna say guys, but that's generic and not fair.
you're tasked with a thankless job, no matter which way you go. I've sat through enough of the experience with you to know full well that's true. But zoning, as I understand, is to attempt to balance the interests of all people. The larger landowners and the smaller landowners as well, so that everybody gets their voice heard. And you try to find some semblance where all survive from. I think that's largely what you've accomplished with your section 177. The non-participating folks didn't get everything. The developers didn't get everything going. But by and by large, I live 3/4 of a mile from the church. I see them as having been a benefit community. I drive on roads out there now in the rain when I couldn't even think about driving down short of 4-wheel drive or with a tractor before. We didn't pay for that. We don't have the budget. That's a major factor. Probably between two wind farms, you're talking about 60 or 70 miles of road. It's probably close to 10% of the road distance in Marion County. One of my bankers told me one day, and he did not name names because that wouldn't have been appropriate, but that he had 2 clients who were kept from being sold out that particular year because of the wind turbine property. I understand what Chase is saying about housing development, and I agree you don't want to build turbines right against the housing development. But as an oil operator, I'd also say the bigger problem, Chase, where you're at is the water. And you and I both know where that came from. I've got an oil operator license and have that for 40 years. So I'm certainly not angry with that. But looking at an overlay district would make good sense, all right. The document put in front of you applies to state statute. It's actively unfair. I'm not worthy of direct review until you got through a legal decision and see what you throw out there. Start out
You may have seen me before. I came before this committee several years ago, and it was a motion, Nick Peter. And we were asking at the time that you give us a termination date on the CPUs, the day that was no longer enforceable, but expiration date. And we waited, we got that, you gave it to us. And 2 years after that, they put us in for. And I understood that there was a 1 year waiting, year after the CPUs would be no good. They'd have to do them again, but they went ahead and put them in. I lived out there, I got wind turbines right next to me. They make a horrible sound, like airplanes taking off all day long. At night, when the wind dies down, they screech. I run outside and thought, there's somebody being murdered. Some woman, it sounded like a screech. It's ridiculous. They lied to us about how loud they were. They were much louder than that, and they say. They said that it was like a conversation. Well, I can hear that conversation a quarter of a mile away from me on my property. And the flicker that affects us all in the spring and in the fall when the sun gets in the right spot is murderous to your eyes, gives you a headache. And I just don't know whether we can trust them. They didn't stick to a lot of the things they said that they were going to stick to, and now, you know, the county is all the time controlling us and telling us that we can't do things. They told me I couldn't have 2 houses on my property. So, you know, I have to tear down a perfectly good house because of the county after I built my new house. So there shouldn't be any problem with telling people in the county that they can't do something, put more wind turbines up. I've already got one in my place. if you get them around you, you're gonna regret the day that they came here. We're miserable, it makes life miserable, it changes the quality of our life.
There is an online comment. Just let me know when you would like for me to read it.
Is there anybody here, a person? If not, we'll go to that. We're not done here yet. I just, if somebody felt I was gonna give you a person, go ahead, Sharon.
No, if there's someone else in
I didn't
there.
see anybody, unless there was a hand I didn't see. Raise it higher if you are. If not, we'll go to you, Sharon. We can come back.
Okay. Chris Gore online said that they moved to the country to raise their children with fresh air and nature, not industrial machines. You will more than likely lose this family if you allow more turbines. I've read the proposed changes and agree with them for the safety of my family and neighbors. Saying we can't keep foreign companies accountable, so why try is extremely poor business and makes no sense. Have you researched destroyed land from broken blades? The board represents us. We want these to be read line by line.
Anybody else?
Can I just add something? Would anybody that's on this board that's making these decisions be comfortable with a circle of these being built around their property at the minimum setback to avoid every, to obstruct every view you have?
Without financial benefit.
Without financial benefit.
A loss.
Come on.
A loss, a financial loss.
Yes. Yes, it's gonna be great.
By 40 to 100%. We've had people on this board and on the commissioners both say that. 40 to 100. Yep.
That's true. Any other comments? I kind of gave them a little leeway. I don't really want to put that up to other people. I appreciate the comments. Anything else in the room? Anybody else would like to speak? If there aren't.
You want to talk to you?
I appreciate the words.
It's kind of cold, so they cue you up a little bit longer.
What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
Okay, there's flour.
What are,
Okay.
Supposed to be these public comments that we have, and they're not supposed to be read out loud or anything. Would we just read them?
Typically, you would read them. There was one that asked to be.
one was asked to read out loud. Yeah.
If you give me just a minute here, I can read them. Okay.
Ryan Leitner. Another one of that.
That was the only one.
Typically, when they're provided to the board, they end up as,
Has everyone-
from the record with. Since they requested it. So Sharon, I have two of them. I'll ask you guys to keep it down.
And can I remind again for those that came in later, would you please sign the sign-in sheet?
Yes, please
if you
sign in if you were in, came in later.
Yeah, thank you. There may be one or two, I don't remember. Thank you. Okay.
We know which one it was that said it.
Brian Leitner was one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, there was just one that I saw that asked to have the comment read out loud.
We have two of them.
Are there two?
There was two?
It's a short one.
So, in And I guess I can just recap the brief who gave public comment if you want, or.
Yeah, I mean, normally, I guess, unless they ask, I think
They just hand it
continue
in.
on.
Right.
Um,
The board has all received a copy of it. You've all had an opportunity to take a look at that, so their comment has been received.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's part of the legal record.
Yes, it's part of the legal record, yes.
So do we read the two that asked to read them? They're short.
Yeah, I would, since.
All right, the first one is from Brian Leitner. The Marion County Planning and Zoning Board, thank you for your willingness to serve as a leader in the county. The responsibility to balance the interests of potential growth for the county and the desires of your constituents can be challenging, and I respect your desire to serve in this capacity. I'm unable to be here in person this evening due to work requirements. My family and I reside in West Branch Township along 90th. I recently learned of several fields adjacent to my property who have signed wind leases. I am opposed to large wind turbines in this corner of Marion County due to the proximity to so many established buildings. For a rural area, there are a significant number of homes impacted by the decisions of those who do not reside near these homes. I do not desire to hear them or see them nearby when I'm home, and appreciate any efforts that can be made to restrict turbines to a respectable distance from any dwelling for those who live in this area. Thank you for listening and your work serving Marion County. Sincerely, Brian White. And the other one is from Mike and Jane Bowler. We'd like to add our names to the list of Marion County residents who are opposed to any further wind farm expansion in Marion County. It's not a good fit for the area being considered. Please consider the opinions of all residents, not just a select few. We would like this to be read in public.
That's fine. Please have mine undertook and I do public comment. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious. That's what
Didn't say me.
Yeah, I think
He
it
just
just
asked
goes with
that the board be sure to get it and review it.
Yes.
Is there a way to go about this without having a giant umbrella that restricts the whole county, but on a case-by-case proposal? Like clearly, this one is met with great opposition. In another part of the county, it might be welcome. Is there a way to not change the covenants as they state, but just eliminate or just go case by case right away?
Theoretically, yes, each zoning application stands on its own merits. So it is a case by case, each CUP. We may have approved this gentleman's non-traditional structure as a residence / short-term rental, and another one at a different location with different development plan may be denied, may be recommended for denial based on its conditions of fact. We had that, Dax. We had Diamond Vista. We had a Marion's auditorium filled with not one opponent, if memory serves, and we have but probably 8 to 10 proponents for the sunflower field. So we had that dichotomy already. I think the best way in which to implement the will of Marion County is through a map designation. These areas are open for application. These areas are sensitive as we define, whatever those areas look like, would be the way to have wind turbines be allowed in the county, but only in specific areas. And then the third option would be the prohibition of any new or expansion of any existing facilities.
So Because that's the way I see it, I guess, like Russ stated, there's two options. I mean, I just don't. Even if we do decide to look at this, we're not looking at it tonight because, you know, I feel strongly that legal counsel needs to look at this before we spend any time. Now, is that the right one? I guess that's the question.
That makes sense. Is to have legal counsel review it, let us know what would absolutely have to be thrown out? What do you eliminate first? And then what is actually enforceable that we could stand on anything? And then what's left, we'll determine how we go about changing that's left and making adjustments.
I thought.
You're quiet.
I have read the whole document, by the way, so I'm not adverse to the document. I'm adverse to poison pill and I think I stated that. Totally good. There are good elements in here. There's things that need to be added. I'm not arguing with anyone on that. So I'm not opposed to going through the document. But when you get into a section that there's just no reason to go further if you can't resolve that. I think there's a lot of legal issues here that really need dealt with before we really dive into it. I think that's step one. I don't think us touching it, like you said, and then finding out, well, legal says we can't, or legal says.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through these. This is ours. So if we're gonna do it, we don't want to spend hours on something that is not legally enforceable. So, and the thing I want to be careful with, as Russ made the point, I guess, is we don't want to regulate to prohibition, I guess. If that's where we're gonna go, let's not waste our time on regulations.
So, get rid of the regulation and put it.
So, that I don't want to spend hours on something that basically makes it impossible to build. That's not that I'm being selfish, I don't want to spend time on it. It's just that's realistically, why are we going to make regulations so prohibitive that nobody can build? It's just prohibitive. Well, that's not. I want to go. That's not where I think. My residents, my jurisdiction, my part of the county. I've been through a lot of these. Very pro wind for a lot of years. Like Russ said, we had the meeting for trade land in the city hall, and there might have been one person for us, maybe two of us spoke against it. And so that's where my hiccup is on this. Is I know there's still people. There's people that were planning to get part of that wind farm, and they consolidated it because of other issues. And I think that people still they would have got some. So that's where I can't. Yes, we're big. Yes, I mean, I'm all with dating on property rights. If somebody wants to do that, property rights are a tricky thing. We've been in the courts for years. That's why there's court cases year after year for that kind of stuff. Because each person has their own. So, if that's the route, again, that's just my point. If that's the route we're going to go, is basically make it so prohibitive, then. If we don't, which I don't think we should, then.
Sorry.
I mean, I did close it, but since it was submitted, yeah. Dear Marion County Board of Planning and Zoning, I'm a lifelong resident of rural Gossel and a business owner in the city of Gossel. I'm a 2000 graduate of Gossel High School. My wife Amanda and I own Funk Electric, Inc., which employs around 45 people. We also own the car wash and mini storage units in Gossel, as well as other rental properties in Gossel and Marion County. We live 3 miles north of Gossel. I have served on the Gossel School Board for 12 years. We have invested heavily in Marion County and Gossel. I'm opposed to the expansion wind turbines in West Branch, East Branch, Minnow, and Liberty townships. Gossel and the surrounding townships are high in population density compared to the areas of Marion County which have wind turbines. Gossel is closer in proximity to more industry than any other town in the county. We are a bedroom community to a lot of folks that work in bigger cities who want to maintain a rural lifestyle. While I understand that there are 2 areas of the county which have existing wind turbines, the majority of the residents in our part of the county don't want them in our corner of the county. I've worked in construction my entire adult life, for the most part, in Marion County and the surrounding counties. My customers have chosen to build in Marion County and the Gossel community because they want to live in a rural setting. The development of wind turbines in our area will have a negative impact on our local development. The majority of people do not want to build a new home around wind turbines. Existing residents overwhelmingly do not want to live any closer to wind turbines than they already do. The expansion of wind turbines into West Branch, East Branch, Minnow, and Liberty townships will have a negative impact on our local development and local economy. Because of this, I am in support of an amendment to the county regulations in Article 27, a permanent ban to commercial wind turbines in West Branch, East Branch, Minnow, and Liberty townships. In consideration of this matter, please take action on this choose. Okay, guys, what's our direction?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to submit this to the legal counsel and have them review it. And once we get back to them, we start the process, whether it's.
So it's been moved and seconded to submit these proposed regulation amendments to legal counsel, to have them review them and then send them back to complete that review. Any discussion?
So basically, to table the decision tonight on these particular set of amendments. So we have a
I'm sorry, I'll yield to Chase and make the rest first. I think that's okay.
I was asking earlier, I agree this is expanding. These are different.
Anybody else? No discussion, we're gonna vote by raising your hand. Anita, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Gave me a thumbs up just a minute ago.
Oh, sorry.
You can go right or left. Thumbs down. Yeah. All those in favor of sending this to legal counsel, raise your right hand. Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, all those opposed?
Anita said thumbs up at the send to legal.
Motion carries. And table the text amendments until they send it back. I won't say that. It is the county legal counsel.
the county council.
County counsel. So yeah, we'll table that until it comes back. It'll be on the first agenda, I guess, after, first available agenda after.
Noticed on the calendar.
Comments from it?
Yeah. process how that works. So then we renoticed that. That's right, we tabled it, so then it would go back to the Board of Commissioners, and whenever the Board of Commissioners is ready to send it back to the planning commission.
It will go to them before it comes back here.
Well, to the legal counsel.
Oh, yes.
Once they are prepared to send it back from legal counsel to the planning commission, we'll send out the agenda for the meeting for everyone that's on the agenda email list. We'll post it on the doors on the website. Meeting notice.
Yeah, it's normal tabling. Okay.
No.
Is there a second? Moving second to adjourn. All those in favor? Say aye.
I would leave it.
Yeah.